because that kind of takes us through your whole college playing career, which is really cool because I think that's that's what I think people really need to hear and want to hear, because it's just it's just incredibly valuable experience for especially high school age goalkeepers to hear, just about like, the idea that you can, if you have one, don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do.
Yeah.
And two, if you want something, work hard for it, and doors will open. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you get in your head that you want to do something, who cares how many people tell you can't? Keep doing it until either you do it or it's just impossible and you found out that it's impossible.
Right.
Don't leave that opportunity hanging.
Yeah. To clarify, I assume people know this by now, but like I'm only 5'7". Like that's a detail that we left out.
I think that's an important one to put in. Maybe we'll flash that on the screen or something.
Yeah, that should be like
periodically.
Yeah, because that's a whole other thing. And
welcome everybody to the GK4FREE podcast. I'm Hunter Gilstrap. This is Will Marshall. So just to catch everybody up that hasn't been here before, or first time listening in or watching us, GK4FREE podcast is part of our movement, the GK4FREE movement, to create the best free goalkeeping content on the internet, and we are slowly making our way towards that.
Yeah,
you gotta have big goals. Gotta have big goals if you want to get anything done in life. Thanks to Aviata Sports. Obviously, they're our number one sponsor, and they help us to keep this 100% free for everybody out there. So today, very special day, completely unique.
Special day.
In terms of what we've done so far, we've kind of used most of the podcast either to have a guest on, with some goalkeeper experience, whether that's coaching or playing, and interview them, or we've kind of gone through, topics in goalkeeping from technique to tactics. I won't run down through all that we've done so far, but go back and take a look if you've missed anything. We've kind of gone through all the basics of technique, and we've started talking about some of the tactical stuff that's important to the position. So go back, check that out. Kind of my idea to sort of kind of wrap things up as we head into the end of the year, and kind of let everybody out there sort of hear our stories. So this week we're going to dedicate the entire podcast to our co-host Will Marshall and his journey as a goalkeeper and a goalkeeping coach, and as just a human being in general.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, I'll just kind of give my background with Will. I've known him since he was 13 or 14 years old, when I showed up to do a session for a kind of a partner club of youth club in the area, and I got to work with Will for the first time, and I think I sort of pitched you towards coming and doing our goalkeeper academy program, because I saw that you were there and another goalkeeper was there who I thought were pretty talented and had some potential, and then that was sort of the beginning of what you see today and everything that's happened in between.
Look at us now.
And so Will went on, and we'll get into his story to go on to play college soccer, and while he was in college, and then is doing that now, but has done certainly a lot more cool things than that, and that's what we'll get into a little bit today. So
sure.
You ready, Will? Will, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I'm from North Versailles, Pennsylvania, which is 10 miles east of Pittsburgh. And so I went to East Allegheny High School, went to EA my entire life. And so then starting out with soccer, like every other child out there, I played soccer at the age of like 3 years old, and just, went from kinder kickers into, just worked my way up. And I didn't go in the net until I think I was 10, and it was in like a rec game. And, at that time, no one's a keeper. Everyone just kind of like, some kids are good at it and some kids just try it for the first time. That's what I did. And I was really good at two things, and it was catching the ball when it was hit straight at me, and I could punt the ball really far. That was it. And so from there, there was a travel team. Most soccer associations have travel teams, but ours was the EA Tornadoes. And at the time, I had some friends that played on the team, but I didn't know. I don't know. It never occurred to me to want to do that. And then after that one season where I could catch the ball, I thought, oh, maybe I'm kind of good at this. Maybe I should see what happens. So I went to the tryouts, made the team. So, that's like the first real, I guess, taste of competitive soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's travel in East Allegheny. It ends at age 12. So once you get to junior high, in other places, it's not like that. It's you play travel through junior high, and then you stop in high school. But so then, moving on to
I'm just going to interrupt real quick, just because if people are watching this or listening to this that are outside of because all this stuff confused me when I first moved to Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh and all of Western Pennsylvania, they have their own very unique. Just like everything else, Western Pennsylvania have their unique names for everything, and soccer is included in that. So like when Will says travel soccer, Pittsburgh's unique in that they've got this sort of, and they do this with all sports, like it's in between rec soccer, like a local in-house rec soccer, and like what most people call like a club team. So these sort of step in between. It's kind of like rec. It's your youth, your local. It's usually tied into the school district in terms of like the name of your team and all that. And they'll go around and play the other teams in the area. So Pittsburgh's unique that way because you kind of get tied into your school, your high school group from a very early age. It's in your community. Because Pittsburgh's very community based. It's like as a clan type culture. It's completely unique that way in a lot of other places in the U.S. So. Just throwing that out so you have understanding for that. And then they'll also call club soccer for some reason in Pittsburgh. It's called, or Western Pennsylvania, they call that cup soccer, which I was also confused about when I came here. So that should hopefully give a little bit of, if you throw these things around, so people have a little bit more of an understanding. So sorry, go.
No, that's a good point. Because I wouldn't know that, obviously. I know cup soccer is weird. I don't know where that comes from. It's really weird to me now that that's what people refer to it as. But that being said, so I tried out for my first cup club team in seventh grade. I was 13, and that it was in the winter, and that was when I first started playing club for Allegheny Force Football Club, based out of Monroeville and kind of Murraysville, sort of. And I was the only keeper on the team for pretty much the whole time. I played for the same club all 5 years. And then, there was another keeper that joined our team when I was 17. We had merged with the age group older than us. He was already committed to a school, so I still got the majority of the playing time. And it's so weird to have to like break down high school and club side by side, because they both happened at the exact same time, but one was just in the fall, one was in the spring. And I think they're both equally important, just to how my whole stuff came about, with EA, which is the high school I went to, has a very strong soccer history. Back in the 90s, they won like 10 straight section titles, 2 WPIAL titles, which is, I guess, Western Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic League. It's not half the state, but it's whatever.
Another strange Pennsylvania thing. Instead of just having a state championship run, you have to win the Western Pennsylvania, which is separate from the actual state playoffs. So it's just a strange place. But go ahead.
Yeah, I never made it to
beautifully
WPIALs.
strange.
Yeah, to WPIALs or anything, so I wouldn't know about any of that. But so going into high school, when I was coming up to be a freshman, there was 2 keepers that were juniors, and this is an important turning point in my soccer career. Was these 2 years. And so there was a lot of, people knew that I was an up and coming keeper. And I guess some people put it into my head that I was going to play, and I had a good chance to play. And I don't know, I never had to compete for anything before at the time. And I was 14. So, early, it was a good time to do it, to get that done with. And, come into high school, and I was not ready. And I was the fitness tests and all that stuff. And that's a whole other thing in itself. But running 2 miles, I'd never run 2 miles before, and I was wrecked for a long time. And so I didn't play. I sat on the bench my entire freshman year, and it was pretty demoralizing at the time. but it was never like, oh, I'm done with playing soccer. You know, it was just how do I sort this out? And so coming back the next year, and that sitting on the bench, that like lit a fire, you know, under me. And so I came back the next year, knowing what I had to do, and I won the starting position over a senior. And we had a playoff run, and it was good. And I mean, that was just I always look back at that because that was like it taught me how to, I don't know, how to want to compete and how to know. I mean, I think the most important thing is that it worked, you know, is that I worked really, really hard and I got the result. Had I sat,
you saw an objective, or you set a goal for yourself, you worked really hard to accomplish that goal, and then you had success doing that.
Right. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it would have been different if I still would have not played. I don't know. I mean, I'll never know. But I mean, it worked. And so that was, you know, at the time, I learned how to compete and I learned how to work hard. And I mean, I always like to look back at that as something that kind of was like a catalyst to, you know, where I ended up now. So
now, was that around the same time, or was that before that you met me and started training with us? Or
this would have been before. It was right before. Because that was my sophomore year. So I was turning 16 that fall. And I want to say it might have been right after that season that that session happened in Murraysville where I met you. And then I think I started at the academy in the bubble after that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what's next? Where do we go from here?
What's next? Oh, well, that's perfect. Yeah. No, that's a perfect little break because that, you know, that's so how did the end of your youth career go, like high school, and how'd that finish up? What did college, what were you kind of looking for in terms of playing in college? What were your expectations kind of before the college happened? What were you going for? How did that all go down?
So I didn't know I wanted to play in college until after that sophomore season in high school. That was when I knew that like soccer was it for me. I mean, I didn't play any other sports anyway, but so that was when I knew for sure. And so then there was a long period of time where I didn't know what I was doing. You know, we went to combines with my club team, and you know, it wasn't anything that was like a ton of exposure, I guess. Like we went to a place called the Spire Institute, which is it's in north in Ohio. It's pretty close to the lakes, I'm pretty sure. And it was a lot of schools from that area. And so you know, you go to those things and they tell you, oh, email a coach, and I wasn't really getting anything. No real contact or replies to these emails or anything like that. And I think probably around that time I had asked you what you thought. And this is where my good memory comes into play, because I remember all of it, and I have the emails still. But you told me something like that I definitely had Division I ability from the way that I trained, but that wasn't you necessarily saying that I could go to a Division I school and play right away. I'm pretty sure that was what you had told me initially. And so at that point I was like, oh, okay, well then it really gave me an idea of what I could shoot for, because I really didn't know at all. And so then from there, I mean, you were the keeper coach at Pitt at the time, and I think I had expressed interest in Pitt. I think I went to a camp maybe around the time that I just started in the goalkeeper academy. And, you know, those things go the way they go. And you had said that they were full. You know, there was already somebody.
Yeah, we just didn't have a roster spot.
Right.
We had Dan, Braden, and a kid, Davin. From Eastern PA.
And so, you know, look, that door being closed for the time being, you know, I was looking at other places, and you know, I had asked you for help, you know, with your network and you know, looking around. We made 2 training videos at EA where we do all the GK4FREE videos, which is hilarious. But so I sent those around,
Life's
and
funny.
Yeah, yeah. And so I sent those videos to as many schools as I could. I think I put it on YouTube and just sent the link around. And so I get to the end of the fall, my senior year, and I have two schools, Baldwin-Wallace in Ohio, Division III. I'm pretty sure they're in the OAC with John Carroll, which is where my brother went and played for a year. And then Washington and Jefferson, which is in Washington, PA, about an hour from here, also Division III. They play in the PAC, which is the Pennsylvania Athletic Conference. And I was between those two. Baldwin-Wallace was first, WJ was second. And I went on visits to both. I wasn't super stoked about either of them. And but the thing was, is because all I really wanted to do was play in college. Like that was where I went, was contingent on that factor. I was willing to just deal with it
Go
if
wherever.
I didn't like it that much. Yeah, because I just want to play. And so I remember being very close to committing to Baldwin-Wallace. I was really, really close. And then I pull up this email. So I remember where I was when I got this email. And the funny thing about it is my mom was telling me to keep reaching out to schools and to keep, what about this school? Why don't you reach out to them? Like, because I had teammates that were getting, looks from other places and stuff. And I remember saying to my mom, I was like, Mom, it's done. This is it. I have these two schools, and then that's it. And so then I was standing in my bathroom.
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go
ahead.
Standing in my bathroom, push pause.
Yeah.
I want to just throw out there real quick, again, to give a little bit of context.
Yeah.
To everybody that's listening. University of Pittsburgh men's soccer team right now is arguably one of the top college soccer teams in the country, if not the top soccer team. I mean, they finished the fall season ranked number 1. Obviously, not as many teams were competing, but lost an ACC championship final to Clemson. I mean, they're the truth. They're legit. They're as elite as it gets. That was not the case in 2013, 2014, around that time when I was there. And that's not to knock or bash the staff that was there when I was on staff, but the program did not have a history of being a winning program, and moving from the Big East to the ACC, which they did right around that time, didn't go so well for Pitt. And so it was that doesn't mean that we weren't trying to get the best talent in there and trying to get the most elite talent that we could, because we knew we had to make up the ground. But that's just to give a little bit of backstory. And again, not to knock anything that's happening here, but because I think another really cool piece of your story is just how you were able to be there during the time where Pitt kind of went from that type of program to moving towards the elite program that they are now. Okay, so you're in your bathroom. Go.
Right. So I was in the bathroom. I was just standing in there. I don't know. So I looked down at my phone, and I have this email from you. It's from January 7th, 2014. And it says, I don't know what the subject line is, but I'm just going to read it. It says, Will, our third GK, has withdrawn from school for personal reasons. And we'll need a GK for next year's class. I think you might be a perfect fit. Here's the situation. And so there's no athletic scholarship available for this position. For this first year, you'll be evaluated semester by semester. To continue to improve, we would invite you back to the team the following semester. The third GK's rule will be to push for first and second, likely redshirting, probably still bring in a keeper for 2015. And then following the next year, we'll probably have to decide if 4 GKs is worth it. Let me know what you think. And so in that moment, just blew everything up, and so Pitt was where I had wanted to be before, and I completely almost crossed it off. I mean, I did cross it off because I didn't think it was possible. And so then, I don't know, a couple of weeks go by, and I talked to some people, and it's so funny that thinking back to it, like the amount of people that told me, oh, you really want to do that? Like, why don't you want to go somewhere and you just, go play? And I mean, I get the sentiment there, but I was like, this is Division I, this is the ACC. I mean, I could not have predicted that Pitt was going to end up where they are now. But I mean, and then going on my visit, and then the facilities that they had at the time are still, I mean, even now they're so much better than they were then.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's it. Like that's the big time. And so I mean, I contemplated it for a while, but I think I knew what I was going to do. And so then another funny part is I remember I verbally committed. I told you that I was going to come at the green street, not in the bubble, but it was in the building up above. I think it was where all the gear was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so then that was the decision. And then so, you know, I had like my signing day thing at, you know, in my high school. And from there, it was just trying to figure out how to transition now from probably a club and a high school career that did not prepare me for Division I soccer.
Yeah.
And I felt that lack of preparation immediately. You know, going, because at the time what we did, and they don't do it this way anymore, but we had like a preseason where everybody would try to come and be on campus a week before preseason. Right. And that was like everyone getting to know each other. And I mean, being from as close as I am, I was there on day one, you know, and like not a lot of guys were there on day one, and I was the only keeper that was there. And I pretty much got thrown into like possession-based stuff, and I'd never done that before, especially at that pace. And I remember I was freaking out. I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I felt so out of my comfort zone. And I knew that was going to happen, but I just didn't know it was going to be to the extent that it was. And there were some rough times. Like I was really second guessing myself for that first week or so. And I was kind of freaking out. And then, you know, things started to settle once, like, I think Braden showed up, and then Dan showed up next. We got into some keeper training, and then real practice started. And then I finally got comfortable once we act like I was able to train like I had just been doing, you know? And so, and then, well, where do we go from
here? At what point in there did I tell you that I was leaving? Because I know I kind of started that whole process with you, and then, you know, I decided to leave that year. I was actually going to go try to play in India, which was the reason I stepped away from Pitt, because I had an opportunity to play over there. Right. And that fell through, but I'd already stepped down from Pitt, and I was out of contract with the Riverhounds, and told them that I was leaving. So I was up in the air. So I decided to go try to find a way to play a little closer to where I grew up. So I was going to play in for North Carolina FC. Well, then they were the Carolina Railhawks, but I was going to go for that year away. So I kind of left you high and dry.
I think it would have been like July or August that you told me.
July. Yeah.
And so then you were there for the first, like, what, 4 days of preseason, I think? It was a couple days.
Okay.
I think so.
I didn't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It might have been like the first 3 days, 3-4 days. And then, so yeah, you left. And then, you know, Ryan Hewling steps in, who, well, at the time he was on the pro team, and he was an academy coach that I had for 2 years, I think. Yeah. And so, I mean, that was you know, a good thing. I was, you know, all for that, because I felt like he was an extension of you, you know, it was the similar type of coaching and training. And so, you know, that staff was there for the next year and a half. And those, you know, that whole time, you know, I didn't play as a freshman. I redshirted as a freshman, but I ended up getting to travel the entire year because the number two, he sprained his ankle, and then when he came back from the ankle sprain, he broke his wrist, which was crazy. And so I traveled on a red shirt the entire season, something I wasn't supposed to do, which was super cool. I never played.
I don't think there's anything illegal about that. I think it just it's a matter of declaring it. Like that just means they have to declare the red shirt after the fact.
Yeah, I just mean that. Yeah, no.
You weren't supposed to as part of the plan.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to travel at all. Yeah, and so, I mean, that was just super cool getting to go to, you know, I went to North Carolina, went to Duke, and it was, I mean, the season itself wasn't super successful for us. I don't know what, I mean, I think we won like 2 games maybe. And then, you know, coming back around the sophomore year, same thing. Braden Horton, the number 2, ended up transferring to Michigan. We brought in a freshman, Mike Wildcult. And so it was myself, Dan, and Michael. And Dan Lind, former Riverhound, was, you know, a senior at the time. And, you know, me being a sophomore that, you know, now I've settled in to Pitt. I mean, I think, you know, obviously you try to do everything you can to make yourself an option to get on the field, but I don't think anyone foresaw Dan losing his spot. And so, you know, that season was more of the same, you know, training and trying to figure out, you know, where everything lies and like what the rest of my college years look like and stuff in terms of playing and stuff like that. And I actually had a conversation that I think it was that year with Ryan Hewlings about potentially transferring because I wanted to play. And I ended up not doing it, which was good. And I mean, I don't think I took it very seriously. I was just kind of seeing what was what and what the thoughts were and, you know, different stuff like that. And
I think it's always good to have those conversations. Like, I think the more, because, and this is like a valuable point, I think, for a lot of college goalkeepers out there, like, if you're a number 2 or number 3 or number 4, like, your coaches expect you to be having those thoughts. You know what I mean? They expect you to be entertaining the idea, because if you're not, like, if it's not eating you up on the inside that you want to play, there's probably a problem. Do you know what I mean? Which doesn't mean you're a very realistic option if you did get to play. So that would just be like, that's like a big, I think, thing to share and encourage other goalkeepers about if they're not playing. Like, try to be as open and honest as you can with your coaching staff, and don't be afraid after the end of a season to walk in their office and say, hey, look, I don't necessarily want to leave. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to play. But you know, is transferring, is it smart? Is it a good idea? Would it be in my best interest? Because I think that most college coaching staffs are ultimately looking out for the best interests of the players on their team. And a lot of times that doesn't always mean staying in their program the whole time, as much as they might like to save that guy for 1 or 2 years at the end of his run.
Yeah. So where are we at now? Into the
talking about your conversation with Hewlings to transfer.
So yeah, that, I mean, nothing came of that. I mean, I think it was just a, like you said, it was just a conversation. And I'm trying to think. I want to say that was the fall of my sophomore year. So that was the last semester before the new staff came in. And so we finished that season. Like, I think we won 4 games, and they were the first 4 games of the season. And then things, you know, went downhill from there a little bit. And so we went to Notre Dame. I think we just come back from Notre Dame. It was like, we drove through the night, and I think we lost like 5-0 or something like that. And
I remember that game, actually.
Yeah. And, you know, Dan played during that game, and he was like waving to try and get them to put me on at the end, because, you know, he wasn't feeling great, I don't think, at the time. And I mean, you know, it is what it is at this point. And so we come back, and I think we had a meeting maybe 2 days later, and that was when Lux announced that he was retiring. And so from there, everything was up in the air. You know, we continued to train like normal, but we didn't have any coaches. Like, the entire staff was gone. And so that remainder of that fall season, we met with a couple people. And then it was right before winter break that we met the current head coach, Jay Vidovich. And you know, he came into the locker room and talked to us. And what's really funny is, thinking about it now, our locker room was a mess. And that was one of the first things when he came in, was like, you guys gotta figure this out. Like, this locker room cannot look like this. You got to hold yourself to a higher standard. It's got to be professional. And thinking about it now, I remember him looking around, and I was like, what's he looking at? And it was like he was just disgusted with how our locker room looked. And if I walked into a locker room like that now, I'd be disgusted too. But at the time I just didn't know. I wasn't aware of something like that. And so, he comes in as head coach. The assistants gradually get announced, Mike Bohonic being one of them, and then Jeff Nagala. I hope that's how you pronounce his last name. He was before you at UNC, and then Bohonic was at Penn State.
I think.
Yeah. And so we come back, and normally under the old staff, like coming back from winter break would be, you're straight into like conditioning, or we used to run the Manchester, and if you know what the Manchester is, I'm sorry, but and then that was the plan. Like, we were told by the strength staff that that's what we were going to do. And I mean, I remember that ruined my Christmas break, because I was just like, I'm not fit. I'm not going to be fit. I'm not going to pass this test. It's going to be terrible. And then we come back, and Jay was like, no, we're not going to do that. And so we kind of eased our way into training, and just kind of gradually all of our lives were completely shaken up. There were a lot of guys that could adapt, and then there were a lot of guys that weren't going to adapt as quickly. And I remember the first session with Bohonic, and every time I see Michael, we talk about this, but we couldn't catch a thing. And it was the nerves of wanting to prove yourself again, but also being aware that like things are
first impression.
Now. Yeah. And so you knew right away that this was the real deal, and like this was now a completely different thing, and like everything was going to change. And so that spring, went along, and I think that, the transition from high school to Pitt initially was a big jump, but then the transition from the old staff to the new staff, the current coaching staff, was also a big jump for me. Because I think just tactically, and my soccer IQ wasn't where it should have been, in order to play for, like a Jay Vidovich. And, I don't know what exactly I can attribute that to. I mean, it got better as as time went on, but
it's not I think it's more of just to kind of the soccer culture and where you grew up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not too much that you can knock yourself and your own experience for.
Right. And I mean, it's something that it feels almost like, it's like, what should I have been doing? Like, why am I not able to keep up? But I mean, there's nothing that I could have done differently, I don't think, because I just didn't know. And luckily for me, I was able to keep up in a sense that I was worth keeping around, but that still did not stop me from almost transferring again. That spring, that first spring that the new staff came in, I was under the impression that, I don't know, maybe it'd just be easier if, I transferred out, and then they can bring in their guys, and so I had gone into the office, and I said that I wanted to transfer, and I remember the reaction surprised me. Jay kind of said like, oh, like, really? Like, are you sure? And then Bohonic calls me, and he's like, I heard, and, we'll help you, find a place, whatever. And so I kind of started that process, and again, I didn't know what I was doing. I looked at some places, and I realized that it's so much work. You have to like look at a lot of different things. And so I remember,
especially at that time in your career, after being 3 years in school, it can make things very, very difficult.
Right. And I mean, you hear these stories of other teammates or players transferring, and then they get their credits don't transfer, and then you're stuck like as a 21-year-old freshman or something, and like that weighs on you. And so that was a big consideration to make, because that's not something that you can even know until you get so far into the process. And so I remember I had a list of schools, and I had asked Jay to look at it, and he said, yeah, I'll look at it, but I don't see Pitt on there. And I was like, what does that mean? And so I think what he was trying to tell me was that, he told me this later, was that, I could have transferred and ended up in the same situation that I was in. I could have been not playing. and he told me, he's like, well, we're glad to have you here. We're not telling you need to transfer. Like, this is you wanting to transfer. And, if it doesn't, if you end up not finding somewhere to go, you can stay, like, your spot's here. And I think it was around spring break. I was like, I don't think this is the right move. And so I decided to stay. And that decision there is probably the best decision I ever made, because going from that point to my senior year, to the end of my senior year, I ended up playing a total of 12 minutes. I didn't play, not just in the fall. I played a little bit here and there. But, looking back at it, I got so much better just being in that environment and, being held to that high of a standard and getting that training every single day. And, like, my soccer IQ eventually caught up. And so that initial season, with the new staff, we didn't win a ton. And I remember there was even some people were saying, like, oh, we're still not winning. And it's like, we're a year in, I never had a doubt that environment was going to produce some big results. And you look at it now, and that's exactly where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very fast. 4 years is still fast. And so, going through that extra 2.5 years from my sophomore year to my senior year, I grew a ton as a player and as a person. And, I didn't play. And, some people look at that and they're like, oh, why'd you stay there? You didn't play at all. Isn't that the whole point? And, like, I get that, but I think I probably feel good about it because of what happened after. But at the same time, like, I just learned so much, and a lot of that I think played into where I'm at as a coach too. Everything that I was able to learn there also, and being able to say that I was that I was a Pitt soccer player. It was all 100% worth it.
Yeah. So then what happened next?
So
what happened after?
I knew I had a redshirt year left. And going into the fall of my senior year, I wasn't sure if I was going to want to use it or not, because throughout this entire time, I also found the weight room, which is, at Pitt, I was always in the weight room, and I knew that was a thing that I will have after. And even there were parts of me where I was like, I kind of just want to go do that. I'm not really, things. I still want to get on the field, and it's not happening. And so it's almost like, well, do I want to do this for another year? And so going through the fall of my senior year, at some point I decided that I wanted to try and play somewhere else and try and play that last year. And so I think it was after practice one day. It was right around my birthday. It was mid-November, and I talked to Bahanic, and we just had the conversation of, I said, I think I want to use my 5th year, and it's not going to be here, because I knew that there really wasn't an avenue for me to play in the next year, and that was what I wanted. I wanted to go somewhere. I wanted to be the guy, just that one time, just so that I had it. And so we had the conversation, and I got my release the next day, and he was like, we'll help you, talk to whoever. And I got my release for everywhere except the ACC. That's just like a Pitt thing.
Yeah.
And not that I was looking to transfer within the ACC anyway. And so then I started immediately. And the one thing about the transfer process that I did not know is that you have to move really, really fast, because you don't have a lot of time at all, especially at that time in November, because it was November going into winter break, and then teams
they're filling their recruiting classes.
Exactly. And so I sent a bunch of emails to some like mid-level Division I schools, Division II schools, and a couple Division III schools. And I got responses from Northern Kentucky and then Westchester University. Westchester, I kind of already had connections to because of Matty Evans, who used to work with us here at the Hounds. He played at Seton Hill. He was a coach at Westchester at the time. I texted him, saw that they had maybe an opening, and I asked him what was going on, and then he put me in touch with the head coach. And so I was between those two, Northern Kentucky, Westchester. I went and visited Westchester it was right around Christmas. just, there was nobody there, and no students. It was really hard to get a good idea of what was going on. 4 hours away, east side of Pennsylvania, met the coach. And initially that was it was like, yeah, we have a spot, but there's no money. Northern Kentucky, talked on the phone briefly. I was going to try and get a visit there, and ended up never happening. They had a keeper that their starter the previous season won the Horizon League Keeper of the Year. And the coach said, I mean, that there's room to compete, but I mean, to me, that didn't sound like.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I go visit Westchester, and then I get a call from the head coach, Coach Ben, and he says, hey, we found some money. I can offer you $2,000 for, scholarship for, and I think that's an important thing to say, honestly, because I think people are they don't know what that stuff looks like for scholarships.
Yeah.
In terms of playing.
Yeah, nobody has a clue. Everyone thinks they're going to get a big 80%.
Yeah, everyone thinks it's a full ride. Yeah, and it's not. And so, I talked to some people. I talked to Bohanek. I told him about the situation. I talked to you, and I knew Westchester was a national tournament team. I didn't know, what the team was going to look like. I mean, they were returning a lot of players, and so I decided on Westchester for that last year. And that's another thing is like the difference in the divisions. I didn't know what to expect at all. Being at Pitt and being at this, these really high standards, I assumed that. And
just for everybody, Westchester is their Division II.
Division II in the PSAC, Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference. And so I mean, I don't know if you don't have any experience in another division, and that's something that's so. I was thinking about this today. Is like everyone looks at schools based on their division, when in reality that really doesn't matter at all. Like there is difference, but the difference, like the spectrum within each division, is the same across the board. And so, I mean, you could have. I'm not saying the top teams in Division II would necessarily, beat ACC teams more than they lose. I think they would compete though, on some good days.
I mean, you see that with the Charleston, you see that with the Barry, probably more than you did with the Westchester, and you'd admit to that too. I mean, just from the difference in the way they play and the way they approach the game tactically and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I moved out to Westchester August 1st of 2018. And, it was kind of it was weird in the beginning. We trained, we had that preseason set up. We trained at local high school. We had to jump over the fence to get to the high school field. We weren't allowed on our field. Our field was locked. And, I was just meeting the team, and, it was pretty good. I mean, it was different. It was definitely different. And, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea how it was going to be different. If it was going to be, close to the same, very different. And, obviously it was, and it was, there were frustrating times for me off the jump. And it was difficult because, being a 4-year player coming from the ACC, and then being that 5th year on this Westchester team, is like I felt like I had a lot to offer. I thought people were gonna want to know. I felt like I was already in a leadership position, and
you've got all the secrets to soccer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and so but it wasn't really. I wasn't received that way by everybody initially. Yeah, and there was a moment where we were playing small-sided at this high school field. And there wasn't a lot of defending going on, and which kind of was starting to eat at me, and this is like the 3rd day I'm there. And there was like a pass play to the last guy back, and he just dummied it to nobody, and it was just a tap in on my goal. And that was like the last straw, and I freaked out. And everyone's looking at me like they saw a ghost, and I was like, what? Like, let's just get on with it. Let's go. I was just tired of getting scored on, giving up dumb goals. And one of the underclassmen said, hey, you gotta take it easy. And I was like, hang on. And so that was kind of like I was like, what's happening here? And, eventually like things sorted themselves out, but I kind of had to make the decision to like, it's either I'm going to try and enact as much change as I can and be really, really frustrated, or I'll just worry about the things that I can worry about, that I can control, and just see where it goes. And that's what I kind of did. And I was still frustrated at times, but it wasn't nearly as much as I probably could have been.
Yeah.
So going into preseason, we had fitness tests to run, which didn't go well for me. I mean, I did all right, but it felt like that mattered almost. And I don't think it did.
Yeah,
But,
of course.
going into
I get that.
and day one of preseason, we played small-sided. I did not concede a single goal because I was on one. It was my last year. I got things to prove, and I was playing really well in my opinion. And so we play our preseason games, and I got the second half of both those games, and I got kind of a weird vibe from that, to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
And I said something about it in the second game, and our coach was just like, "Oh no, it's it just is what it is." I was like, "Okay." And so then game one of the season, we're playing Jefferson College, and there was no conversation leading up to the game. And this is kind of what I meant. Like I'm not knocking anyone. This is just how it went.
Yeah.
We're sitting around the bench, and our Coach Ben's getting ready to read the lineup, and I wasn't in it. And I was just like, I felt it coming, And for me, I'm like, I'm here to play. This is it for me, And I get that other people, other seniors, it might be it for them too. But I transferred I could have hung it up. I came here to play. And honestly, I think had the conversation been there, I wouldn't have been as angry as I was. But there was nothing said at all about what was behind
I get
the decision.
Listen,
and
I've played for and been around exceptional coaches, and I've been around a lot of average coaches, and honestly, and coaches hear this for what you want, but if you're the kind of coach that avoids those conversations with your players to keep them in this sort of gray area where they don't know where they stand, it will affect your team's performance. Having honest, transparent conversation with your players about exactly where you see them and exactly what you feel their role is will get better performance out of the guys on the field, and it'll get better performance out of the guys that are on the bench. And you won't have this growing group of dissenters, right, that they're starting to resent the way that you're avoiding communication with them. And that's 100% a personality thing. A lot of people don't like conflict. So they avoid those conversations, and they just chalk it up to, this is the way that I run my team. You got to get on with it. But listen, don't be that coach. You'll be a better coach by having this conversation. And even if you're not sure, you don't know, you can't tell the difference between Will in this situation and the other guy that was there, that's fine. Tell them that. And you don't have to bring them in and tell them together, but tell them that. And that was probably one of the best things that I loved about working for Bob Lilly for the River Rounds. As hard as he is to work with and to play for, he's an open book, and he will tell everybody why they're not playing or why they are playing and where he sees them, even if he is wrong. And he'll say that I might be wrong, but this is how I see it, and I'm the coach. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so, we opened the season with I think we won 1-0. And so, nothing's changing after that. It's not like I'm playing the next game. There's still nothing said to me at this point. And I said something to, I think, our keeper coach at the time, just, what's the deal? And then eventually this conversation comes, and it even then, it kind of, the timing was gone. Obviously at that point, having the conversation there is kind of pointless. And even what was said in the conversation, I wasn't happy with, because I didn't agree with it at all. Which obviously I'm not going to. But so then we play another game, and we lost. Third game of the season, I'm still not playing. We're playing against Wilmington, and I remember thinking to myself, like, what do I do here? Like, I could, like, I even thought about quitting and trying to transfer and save my year or something. That ran through my head. And so I'm sitting on the bench, and we're getting late into this game, like 88th minute. The starting guy, his name is James Wood. Me and him were really tight, by the way. Like, there was never any beef with us at all. Like, we're boys. And so he goes down with a quad injury, and I remember I was even zoned out because I was just plotting in my head, like, and so I get the call. Like, oh, what? And so I go in, and we end up playing like to 120 minutes. We tied. So from then on, except for senior day, I played the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess I could have found a reason to still not be happy and be like, oh, I didn't win it outright or whatever. But there was never time to think about that. You know, it was just, let's go. And so
that's just wasted energy. Would have been wasted energy.
Exactly. And so, you know, we, you know, move along and, you know, we're winning, and this Westchester team didn't know what losing was really. Like, they had a freshman class that didn't lose a game. And I mean, it was different. It was different than Pitt. It was a different style. I mean, at Pitt, I was always instructed to try to play out of the back. You know, we were always keeping the ball. Westchester was more so, let's get the ball up the field, let's deal with it there. But the defending on this team was incredible. I mean, like, just the individual defenders were great. I mean, and I just said in the post that I had the other day about the semifinal save, I mean, that was the closest thing to a 1v1 I saw the entire year. Like, I didn't have to make a lot of saves.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, we're winning. I think I'm trying to remember the order of all these things that happened. And I guess I should go back and say, so before I transferred in the summer, I was playing a summer league game, and someone said to me, they knew I was transferring to Westchester, and they said, hey, you know, the Division II National Championship is going to be at Highmark Stadium this year for this year.
Yeah.
And like, I was
like, Pittsburgh, cool. Which is where the Pittsburgh Riverhounds play, which is where Will had coached and trained there and all the way through.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You know, and at the time I'm like, that'd be sweet, you know, but I'm not expecting to go to Westchester and play in a national championship or
even make a goal of, oh, we're going to win a national championship. I'm going to go play in Highmark Stadium.
I mean, I knew we were a national tournament team, but you know, you just can't think like that really. Cause I mean, and so we get to, you know, the regular season,
especially transferring in, you know what I mean? It'd be one thing if you'd been there the whole time and you're like, our goal this year is national championship, but it's a little bit different in your situation.
Right. And so we're finishing up the season, and the team's goal was the PSAC tournament. That was the team, because they had lost the year before. That was what they wanted, was the PSAC final. And you know, so we end up winning the regular season. We're the first seed, so that means we host the PSAC tournament. I think our record was 14-1-3 maybe to finish the regular season. We never allowed more than 2 goals in a game the entire season. And we go into the PSAC tournament. We win the first game 1-0 against East Stroudsburg. And then we're going into the final against Millersville, which we had beat in the regular season 2-1. And that game, we go up 1-0. You know, and at that point, like, they were a very possession-based team. There are a couple teams like that in the PSAC, and they kept the ball the whole time. And so it was kind of one of those things that I could just feel like, I was like, something bad's going to happen here if we don't figure out what's going on. And so I think it was a free kick, and then ball gets cleared. Everyone stays inside the 18, and one of our guys was staying on the post. I don't know what he was doing there. And he held everybody on side. The ball gets bounced around. It's a tap in 1-1. So we go into extra time. Very last second of extra time, we hit the crossbar, go into penalties. This is my first real life penalty shootout I think I'd ever been in where it mattered. And I was feeling really good about it, because generally, like, I always thought I was good at penalties, and I didn't really feel like worried. And like, very first one, I got smoked top left, and I was like, oh, this is not gonna. I don't know how this is gonna go. So then we miss. The next one on me goes top right. And I was like, all right, these guys know what they're doing. They train their penalties. And so there was I had a chance to save maybe 2 of them, but I went the wrong way, and we ended up losing penalties, lose the PSAC final, which is what we wanted. Everyone's super demoralized, but we made the national tournament. And so there was even a vibe of like, no one wanted to play. Like, this was what we were supposed to do, and we lost. Like, the season's done. So we go to play Notre Dame College, which is Ohio, and beat them 3-2. I like to think I made a guy miss the game-time penalty towards the end. So then this game puts us playing against the University of Charleston, which is like a top dog in Division II historically. And that was the team that Westchester had lost to the past 2 years in this same game in the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
And so Division II at the time it was a regional championship. They don't do regions anymore. I think it's a super regional now or something, or they put them together, whatever. So we're going to Long Island to play Charleston in the Sweet 16. And the one thing about the Westchester guys is like everyone knew what we were up against, but everyone was so good at acting like they didn't care. And that was such a good, it was awesome to be around because like, I mean, I think everyone was aware of what could happen. Yeah. What was likely to happen, but no one was ever worried about it, which is awesome. And so we go into this game, we're playing on this muddy grass field that was chopped to pieces because there was a game played before. It's cold, hard mud. And Charleston's trying to keep the ball and they just can't. And so we ended up scoring like 10 minutes in. And, it was like, it was kind of, it took a step back. I was like, all right, what's going on here? So then, we get to the half, it's still 1-0. And the thing about Charleston is they never deviated from their game plan once. Their whole plan was to try to bait one of our backs and then slip it behind and go 1v1 with me. And they tried it so many times, it never worked. They never tried anything different until the last 10 minutes. And by that point, we were, fully parked. And so we end up seeing out this game. We win 1-0, and that's an Atlantic Regional Championship. And it was crazy because, I mean, that felt like a national championship in itself. Like it was such a big win. And so after that, I think everybody kind of felt like we could do something big, because that was the team we had to get past. And then that's probably a national tournament or a championship contender all the time. And so if we could beat one of them, then, we can do a lot more.
We can do anything.
Yeah. And so, 2 days later, we go play at Delphi University, which was moved to Hofstra because the field that we played at was so beat up. We end up going, we go there, we win 2-0. That game sends us to Pittsburgh. And I remember after the whistle blew, everyone's, celebrating, and there was a song that was playing, and the lyrics were like, I just want to make my hometown proud. And I was like, man, I'm about to start crying on the field. And it was just such a weird moment. And I thought that was super ironic at the time. And, obviously everybody's making their hometown proud, like, winning the Elite Eight. But, we were going to Pittsburgh, and like everyone was running to me. So, we're going home. And it was just so surreal. So then we had some time. We had like 2 weeks. Thanksgiving was in between, and we were able to go home for 4 days or whatever. And I go home. I'm going through Shenley Park, and there's like banners for the Division II festival, which is what they do every 4 years in Division II, where they have a bunch of national championships all in one place. Yeah. And so at the time, it was for us, men's, women's soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, maybe volleyball, and then men's and women's cross country, all in Pittsburgh at the same time. And
all in the frozen tundra.
Yeah. Great place to choose. And so I come over for Thanksgiving. We come back
for volleyball
a little bit. Yeah, well, they were inside Duquesne. They were good, but the rest of us froze. And we trained for a couple days, and I remember I didn't even practice because I got hit really hard in the Elite Eight game. I got crushed in the air, like blew up my quad. Like it was just a big bruise, and I couldn't kick a ball. Mm-hmm. And so then, we get on the bus to go to Pittsburgh, and at the time, I was probably the most stressed out I've ever been in my life. Like I felt at the time that I should be so much more excited, and just because of the stress, I wasn't. And this happened to me from the Sweet 16.
Sports will do that.
Yeah. I mean, there was a point before the Adelphi game, which is the Elite Eight, that I was like, my chest, my heart was pounding, like I'm sweating. I remember I put my feet up on the wall before we went outside, but the second I crossed the line to play, it all disappeared. And that happened every single time. And going back home, I was like, I should be more excited, but I was just freaking out. And we had the opening ceremony was at Topgolf, which is all the teams in all the sports, all meet at Topgolf. They have like these awards for GPA or something. And then the next day we got to train at Highmark. I remember it snowed. It was covered in snow that day. And, just did a little bit of stuff. And then, back at the hotel, we're staying downtown across from the convention center. And my parents stopped by, and like former teammates at Pitt stopped by, and my aunt from California flew in, and I'm telling everybody like, hey, like I'm playing for the semifinal Thursday, and everybody's telling me you better win because I got to work, because it was Thursday at 12 o'clock or something.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
I'm like, all right, I'll do my best. And so we go into this game, and we're playing Cal Poly Pomona. They're ranked pretty high in the country. Very good team. Like
what's crazy? Like real quick, like small world moment. Like Ari Amin, who was at Pitt for these last couple of years, his dad was a former goalkeeper coach. His uncle is assistant coach, goalkeeper coach for Cal Poly Pomona. So Mike Amin, who I know, who's Ari's dad, was there at the game, and I was chatting to him while you were playing about it's just it's just such a bizarre, crazy small world. But sorry, go ahead.
That is crazy. I found that out later after I met Ari, because I had no idea at the time, and Ari told me that he almost, when he transferred from Penn State, he almost went to Cal Poly. And so anyway, that day was, I think it was like 40 degrees. It was miserable, and we're lining up to get our names announced, and my family was sitting at the very top of the bleachers, and they had these signs that spelled out my name, and they spelled it out backwards. It was like, it was supposed to say Willie, and then it was wrong. At that point, I wasn't nervous anymore, because I'm like, I'm already here. Whatever kind of happens. And I mean, for me, I wanted to extend our stay, because I knew if we lost, we're going home that night, but we could potentially stay. I think we went Tuesday, could stay till Sunday. And like, this is my first time being home. I mean, I was home for the Seton Hill game, which is technically not home, but my first time being home in 4 months. I mean, prior to, Thanksgiving. Right. And so we go into this game against Cal Poly, and like, they were so good, man. Their strikers were so fast, and they kept the ball, and it just, I remember thinking initially, I was like, we're not getting out of this game. Like, this team's sick. And then, we kind of weathered it a little bit, and what was it? I think it was 0-0 at halftime. And then we come back out, it's the same thing, still no real pressure because nothing's really happened yet. And then they score. And they scored on a really good header. I mean, I couldn't really do much about it at all. It was like a header from the near post to the back post. It was, I was close, didn't get there. And so then you're kind of thinking like, okay, like, is this how it happens? And that's the thing, is like the resilience with the Westchester team was just, no one cared. No one cared. We conceded a goal, semifinal, no one cared. And so not even 5 minutes later, a freshman comes on and scores off the volley from 25 out to make it even. And then there's another like sense of like life there, and you really could feel it, And then full time, we go into the locker room, or I don't even know if we went to the locker room. And again, I don't even remember what the feeling was, but it wasn't anything in particular. Like, it wasn't good, it wasn't bad. It was just kind of
just you guys were just there.
Yeah, it was just like a baseline, like normal feeling. And we come out, and I remember I'm facing the supporters section, so the building for Highmark's behind me. I was on that side, and I turned around, and Ruth and Oscar were behind me, like right behind me, behind the goal. These two guys I played at with Pitt, both keepers. And I looked at them, and I think the look on my face was like, isn't this some shit, And so minutes later, they get a corner, ball gets popped up, I go grab it, easy. And I'm kind of slowing it down a little bit. I just go off the punt, like the side volley punt. I went to hit it straight, and honestly, I completely mishit it and sent it like across the field to the left. And it goes right to our left winger, who's just by himself. Dribbles down the field. Worked out so well for me. Dribbles down the field, like fights off two guys, sees our center mid behind him, lays it off to him. And our center mid, and I think about this all the time, Dan Grinrod, and this happens to be the same kid who at the very beginning of the season told me that I needed to chill out.
Yeah.
He plays a dime to our striker at the near post, goal, and I just took off. Like, I don't even remember covering the 80 yards to the corner flag. Yeah. But everyone's going wild, and it's just like that felt like the national championship again for the second time. And I remember being on the field forever. All my friends and family are down at the bottom of the bleachers. and it's like we're going to the national championship. Like this is wild. And so eventually I get off the field, and it's like what now? And we go back to the hotel, and everyone's just riding us high, and it was great. And so then 2 days later is the final, and so I'm telling everybody, I'm like, hey, we won, so now you don't have an excuse. You got to get here. And so I think that day, similar weather, it was terrible outside. We're playing against Barry University in the final. I would venture to say that 40% of the crowd was there for me, maybe more. And it was super cool. And going into this game, the whistle blows, and then even more people come in. Like the entire Westchester women's team came. The field hockey team was playing in the national championship across the river. They came, and all the people from Westchester are right there to my right. And that game was very similar to Cal Poly. They were very good. They kept the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it. This is it. It's almost, it was different. Like losing in the semifinal is different than, for say, losing in the championship or winning. I don't know what about it is different, but and so very similar kind of run of the play. They had a lot of the ball, but we still had opportunities.
Or dangerous on the counter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we scored in the first half, went up 1-0, and I think that might have been more detrimental to us than it was helpful, because that's just not kind of the team that I think we were. I mean, there were times when we did score early and hold on, like in Charleston, but at that time, I just think it was different just because of the circumstances. And I mean, it was a good goal. It was off a corner. We always scored off corners and crosses and set pieces and stuff. And so we go into the locker room, and everyone's losing it. And like, guys, everyone thinks that they have the thing to say. Like everyone's like, listen to me. I know what we need to do. And I'm just sitting there like, I just need a minute to myself. Like, we just got to just relax for a second. Like, we're going to go back out there and do the same thing. Like, just everybody, chill out. So finally we go back out, and I remember saying to Coach Ben, I was like, look, I'm going to waste as much time as I can. That was my thing the entire season. I was just taking my time on goal kicks and dribbling into the corners and standing there waiting for people to press me and stuff. And he's like, yeah, do what you can, but don't do anything stupid. I'm like, yeah. So I was so confident at the time. And then the momentum shifted, and I think everyone in the stadium could feel it.
Oh, and I remember.
It was, they're coming at us. And
probably 15, 20 minutes in the second half. It just, It just felt like they were going to score.
It was very similar to the PSAC final. It was, and I'm even thinking to myself, I'm like, we got to get a handle on this or something bad's going to happen. And so then I remember it like it was yesterday. There was a cross that comes in, and I went for it, and I didn't catch it. I decided to try and punch it, and it goes straight to one of the Barry players, and then it pulls me out even more because I got to go. And ball gets cycled back around, and I drop in, and I probably could have been a little deeper, and it just skims off the ball's crossed back in, skims off the attacker's head, and goes over, like loops over my head. And I recently just watched this video again, and looking back at it, I mean, it was just kind of like a freak thing. Like he didn't do it on purpose. I think it was hitting a good place, and that's 1-1. We were 13 minutes away, I think, from just seeing it out, and 1-1 with that amount of time. And it was like, I mean, I don't think everyone was shaken up for sure, but I don't think anyone had felt defeated yet. Yeah. And then not 4 minutes later, they get a free kick at the top of the box off, on the right side. And again, I probably should have forced them over the wall, and I kind of played it a little bit more to the middle and tried to, because I didn't want them to go over the wall at the time because it was wet. I mean, thinking back at it, it was probably the wrong decision, And so then whistle blows, and this guy just wraps it around the wall into the far post side panel. And I dove, and it was out of reach. And that's 2-1. And at that point, you could see it in everyone's face. It was like, this is it, Yeah. And so, in the aftermath of that, losing in a national championship was was something that never, ever came across my mind because, one, I never thought that I'd end up in that game. And two, even if I did end up there, I figured it just never came across my head that people lose. Like, there's a loser in the national championship, you know?
Yeah.
And the weirdest part of it, I think, is like with college, you really, like, you have 4, maybe 5 years to even attempt to put yourself into that situation. Like at the professional level, I mean, yeah, not everyone plays pro. It's really hard to play pro, but you don't run out of eligibility in being pro, you know? And so that's something that it's like,
there's a time limit, and there's a time limit on every pro player's career. They've got to get, you know, someone's got to be interested in re-signing them, but at the same time, if you're good enough, you can do it as long as somebody tells you can't. Because that kind of takes us through your whole college playing career, which is really cool, because I think that's what I think people really need to hear and want to hear, because it's just it's just incredibly valuable experience for especially high school age goalkeepers to hear, just about like, the idea that you can, I mean, if you have one, don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do.
Yeah.
And two, if you want something, work hard for it, and doors will open. Do you know what I mean? If you get in your head that you want to do something, who cares how many people tell you can't? Keep doing it until either you do it or it's just impossible and you found out that it's impossible.
Right.
Don't leave that opportunity hanging.
Yeah. To clarify, I mean, I assume people know this by now, but like, I'm only 5'7". Like, that's a detail that we left out.
I think that's an important one to put in. Maybe we'll flash that on the screen or something.
Yeah, that should be like
periodically.
Yeah, because that's a whole other thing. But I think the reason I don't mention it is because no one ever made it a factor for me. Like, no one ever said, like, hey, you're 5'7", like, you gotta find something else to do. You know, there was never a time when that came up.
They said it when you weren't around.
Right. And the only time there was even close to that was, it was another coach it was a college coach in Pittsburgh. I won't say who, but he said something to me about being too short. And I mean, it doesn't matter now, but I mean, I don't know. It was never a thing. It was never a problem. And sure, I think my life would have been way easier if I was maybe 6 inches taller, but it didn't. Sure. It's not going to prevent me from doing it at all.
Yeah. I think that's cool. I know that's such a cool message. I do want to talk about real quick before we go. I also want to talk about coaching a little bit, because, after college you went on, you came back and you coached in our academy, kind of took on the assistant director of goalkeeping, go join the staff at Virginia Tech, and went down there for a little while, and it was during this crazy COVID stuff, and ended up deciding to come back here to Pittsburgh. Can you kind of, well, before that, because you coached, like, because I was bad about it, you know me, I was always looking for labor. So I had the guys that were on the team at Pitt coming out to help. I had Dan, Lyndon, Braden coaching in the goalkeeper academy. You know what I mean? And then so when you were so as soon as you got to college and I was back in town, I was like, hey, Will, you want to come coach? And I'm kind of, notorious for doing that with college goalkeepers around town. But when did it feel like for you that, because almost nobody says no to that, because you're, it's whatever you want to call it, money for extracurricular activities when you're in college.
Right.
But when did you actually feel like, through doing all that you actually liked coaching and thought maybe you would do coaching in some, form or fashion after you were done playing?
Well, so I was actually coaching before that all that started, with coaching with the Riverhounds Academy. There was so within my club team, my coaches also coached another age group that was 3 or 4 years younger than me, maybe more than that. And they had a keeper, his name was Jackson, and he actually went on to be a punter at Slippery Rock.
Yeah, I know Jackson. Jackson he was the second coming of Will Marshall.
He came around. Right.
He did the goalkeeper academy after you did. Yeah.
And so they at the time asked me to, because we practiced back to back, and so they would just say, hey, can you come early, work with Jackson? And then
Yeah.
him and I used to train together whenever we had a keeper coach.
Yeah.
And so, I was working with him for, it was a couple of years I worked with him, just kind of one-on-one. And then when I got to Pitt, I started in that, I think it was probably the fall, like right after the season ended. And, in the beginning it was, I don't know if I ever wanted, like, there was never a time where I was like, I want to coach, just kind of was like, I'm still around soccer. It doesn't feel like I'm working, and I'm getting paid pretty well for it. And so, it just, I had like 2 other jobs. I worked at King's Restaurant and Dick's Sporting Goods before, and didn't love those jobs. And then I was like, well, this is great. Like, this pays well and this is fun. And so then it just kind of like continued to be my job. And then I started, here and there, I do other sessions and stuff. And I don't know. I think also at the time in school, like at Pitt, I didn't know what I was doing. I was undecided for the first year and a half. And I think now I know I have a good idea what I should have done, but
it works that way. That's how it works for everyone.
It's how it is. But then once I decided, I chose political science, which again, don't know why, don't know what I was doing, but I kind of rationalized from that, I'll be a social studies teacher because I'm already coaching, teaching, same thing, just different, content basically. And so then it was like, I was still coaching. I coached all through Pitt, all up until I left for Westchester. I coached when I was in Westchester. I had a couple of private sessions that I figured out. And I don't know, I kind of just, I figured around that in that last year, that in this order, after college was over, what I was going to do, the first thing I was going to do was try and play pro. And I kind of tried that, and it didn't really, I think I was just done with it. And
too, like, I want to interject too there, like, tried a little bit, you know what I mean? Like
I didn't really try that
had you exhausted it to the degree that a lot of guys will exhaust it, who really want to do it. I think you're mature about your process. You definitely, had you kept knocking on doors, especially going the indoor route, it would have, you got some interest there. And I think that would have happened had you really sold out. But, I think you, like we'll find out here in a minute with the Virginia Tech thing, I think you're just a little more mature than a lot of others your age. And you just didn't want to be in a situation where it was just going to be a miserable living experience. You know what I mean? And terrible, no financial resources. I went through all that for, 10, 12 years of my life. And, I didn't have to. I did it because I wanted to. So, I think that's just being mature about your life and the direction you want to go and actually having a plan.
Yeah. And, there was, I went to the Riverhounds trial, and I had a trial with the Harrisburg Heat, which is Major League Arena Soccer. And that was, had no desire to play indoor soccer after that.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Wow. It's a whole other thing. And so I was in Harrisburg.
Guys should wear hockey goalie equipment.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just it's a different sport. It's not the same thing. And but anyway, so that was what I was going to try and do. Play pro soccer. Kind of got through that whole thing, and I was like, this isn't really it. And then I was like, well, I still have lifting, I still have fitness, and then there's like CrossFit and all that different stuff. And so that's obviously what I do now. And then I was like, I can continue to coach. And then there was the option to do collegiate coaching. And the thing was with that is, this was after I moved home from Westchester. So right after I came home, I accepted the job as assistant director of goalkeeping because I knew I was coming home. I knew I was going to come back to coach. That position was there. It was a no-brainer. And so then also, maybe I'll start looking at personal training. It was actually right before I moved home from Westchester that I decided to get certified to be a personal trainer. And then I came home, started studying for that immediately. So I'm assistant director of goalkeeping. And then it was around, December, I think. I was in my garage where I lived, and I got a call from Ryan Hewlings, who And it feels like he was at Virginia Tech way more recently than he was. It was a while ago now. Because there's been two coaches in between him and me. And so Ryan Hewlings, who I've mentioned, was at Virginia Tech as the volunteer assistant in 2016, 17, probably around there. Because I was there with Pitt and he was there. And so he calls me and he's just like, hey, like, you know, VTech has an opening. Is this something you'd be interested in? And he actually called me the year before that, and I was going to Westchester. So I was like, oh yeah, like that's interesting. Right. You know, I'll see what that's about. And the thing about this is, with college coaching, is I knew, because of the coaching staff that I had, and I mean the network that I have. I mean, all I really would have had to do was, you know, reach out to Bohonic and say, hey, I want to get into the game. Like, can you point me in the right direction? Because I knew he would have helped me out. Yeah. But the thing was, is I wasn't fully committed to the idea of doing it.
And he's the most connected guy in college soccer.
Right. And so I hadn't decided that was what I wanted to do yet. So I never really made that call. And then this thing kind of just fell into my lap. And I was like, well, this is Virginia Tech. This is the ACC. You know, this is it's a good opportunity. And, you know, I got on the phone with the head coach, and, you know, we talked some things out. And then I decided to just go for it and just see what's what. And so this was January of this year. I moved down there late January. I was there for 2 months, and because of the pandemic, I came home in March. And you know, I just got a glimpse into what college soccer coaching was like, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Just in different areas. I mean, training was great. Being at training was what I look forward to. You know, working with those keepers, and I didn't have a lot of time to really make a huge impact, I don't think, because, you know, we're in the 8-hour week for the first, I think 8 weeks that I was there. So I didn't really even have the guys that often. But, you know, and then there's the office, which wasn't super crazy about just doing that kind of stuff. And so, you know, obviously the pandemic happened. So I come home in March, but I'm still on the staff. And so the plan at the time, because we didn't know this was going to continue to happen, was to go back and forth for camps throughout the summer. And honestly, I didn't really
which as a volunteer assistant, that's a big part of your compensation, right?
Yeah.
Relying on camp income. And
that would have been,
without that happening.
That would have been big. Yeah, actually, it would have been a lot of money for me. But at the same time, before that even, I wasn't crazy about Blacksburg, Virginia. No offense to anybody that's lived there or likes it there. I couldn't do it. It's such a, and I didn't know where it was. Like, going there, I never thought about where it was in relation to anything else. I assumed that UVA and VTech were close. They're not. They're like 5 hours away from each other. And, you know, VTech is on the westernmost point of Virginia. And so it's not near anything. Like, the closest major city is Knoxville, Tennessee, which is like 4 hours away. And, you know, the thing with Blacksburg is like Penn State. It's like a college town where, like, the people there go to Virginia Tech, or they're like retired and have families. Like, there's no like post-grad demographic there, which is what I would have fallen into. And so that was kind of rough. And so, I mean, I don't know, at the, you know, coming home and being home and then, like, you know, starting to coach again. And then I come home and it's like, well, I have all this time. I might as well start Marshall Fitness. And so then I actually started doing real stuff with Marshall Fitness. You know, I was certified. I got certified to be a personal trainer the month before. And so, you know, we moved through the summer, and I'm still doing Marshall Fitness stuff. And then it gets to August, we still don't know what the ACC is going to do. And they finally make the call. I think it was like August 3rd or something, that they're going to try to have a season and only play like 8 games. And when that kind of came about, and then I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't want to go back. And, you know, I was already so in deep with Marshall Fitness. And then it still felt so uncertain, you know, and I decided to not go back there. And so then I've been here since, and I've been, you know, back coaching with the Riverhounds, and, you know, Marshall Fitness since has become an LLC, and I have all this different stuff, and I have an online fitness business. And so that wasn't necessarily me shutting the door on college soccer. I just think for now, it's just not going back, being a volunteer in this day and age is just
it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. College soccer, as a goalkeeper coach, there will always be a lot of jobs available because most college soccer programs want a goalkeeper coach on staff. But the problem with that is you're typically the low man on the totem pole. Oftentimes it's a volunteer assistant, especially if you're younger. And even when you get to be like a guy like my age, if I were to, shift gears again and wanted to get back into college coaching, I'm looking at a pretty major, pay cut and creative ways to, have an, supplement the income and do all that. So that's not to say that it's not a great career path. You know what I mean? But it's a challenging career path, and it's something that somebody really wants to do. Especially as you get older and you start to measure that with having a family and those sort of things, you have to really start to figure that out. It's not all that different for being a professional coach, especially at the USL level or, MLS. Obviously, if you're fortunate enough to get an opportunity to be an MLS goalkeeper coach, that's great too. But then, with all of this, there are no guarantees about how long you're going to be anywhere for any amount of time. So, we've talked before too about having a podcast at some point about, what does it look like when you move on from something or decide to stop or decide to retire or decide to get out of coaching, or your playing career is just over and you weren't prepared for it. Like that's a big part of all of this, and something that we will spend a lot of time talking about, I think probably in 2021. Maybe we'll do a couple podcasts about that stuff. But for me, I'm just so happy that Will came back in town, and timeline worked perfectly for me, kind of having this idea about starting GK4FREE and getting to work alongside him with that, for free, which he does every single time. That's so super cool. And I know you've gotten into martial fitness. Talk real quick just about kind of your thoughts on martial fitness, this goalkeeping program that you developed, what that is, how it works, who it would be beneficial for, and kind of how you came about the idea for it.
Yeah. So I had the idea a couple of months ago, and martial fitness per se isn't really geared towards goalkeepers specifically, in terms of just the business. I work with, the general population, and but because of my background and what I'm still involved in soccer and goalkeeping, I just kind of figured, like, why not mix the two? Because I've been running this 50-50 split for a long time now with, working out, fitness and stuff, and then also soccer and coaching and goalkeeping and all that.
Yep.
And so I decided to kind of just cross paths with the two and see if I could put something together, and, also kind of keeping up with life right now. And, who knows if gyms are going to close again or if people have access to outside. And so the program it's body weight only. And you could benefit from having a pull-up bar. You don't absolutely need one. And so I wrote it in 3 tiers. It's a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And each tier has 8 weeks worth of workouts. The first beginner and intermediate are 3 days a week, and advanced is 4 days a week. And the movements themselves, again, all body weight, and they're all designed to kind of help any keeper build strength, but also build explosiveness and power by just using themselves. And think about it, in the game, that's all you have. You're not going to be pulling dumbbells or using bands or anything like that. You got to figure out how to jump off of your own 2 feet. And so the thing with that is, I actually had a couple guys that are currently playing pro reach out to me about it and ask me, like, your post said, 10 years old at college, like, is it still work for me? And I'm like, I just did that for marketing purposes, that to because I don't have a lot of professional keeper followers, but because of the way the program's designed, Hugo, I think he got to my Instagram from your Instagram. I don't know what his last name is. Him, and then John Hollinger, those 2 guys.
Okay, cool.
And but I said, I was like, look, like, your ability to jump as far as you can is not going to change, based on, as you get older, you can just try to jump further. And then that's always going to be beneficial. You're not going to hit like a max limit there, especially, I mean, anything body weight, your body weight stays the same and it's always going to be there as a stimulus. So you might as well use it to get better, especially if you got nothing else. And so,
right.
Yeah, I just put that out there yesterday. And, I mean, it's gotten some interest. I mean, it's going to take some more marketing to do, but,
sure. It's just a you know, an offering, an offshoot based on what you already do. And,
right.
I'm excited about it. I think we've already talked a little bit, maybe trying to get a couple of our academy goalkeepers on it and tracking their progress and seeing how that goes. I think could be valuable for them and for you. I just think it's super cool, and it's really affordable too. Did you price it like $25, something like
25,
that?
Yeah, and that's the thing about it, is
for an 8-week program that you can use for your entire life at any point. You know, minimum, if you've got 8 weeks here, yeah, I think that's pretty valuable.
Yeah, I mean, and if you use it progression wise, and you start at beginner and go to advanced, that's 24 weeks.
Yeah. So yeah. I got to throw our GK4FREE disclaimer in there though, saying that GK4FREE, everything, all our content will always be free, but you know, Will's Martial Fitness is his own business, and this is how he makes his living. And so for him to come on here and promote what I think is awesome and a really valuable product, and the fact that it costs $24.99, I got no problem doing that, because I think sure, it's not free, but we'll call it a partner of GK4FREE, not necessarily.
Hey, at the same time, all the videos of the movements are on my YouTube page for free.
Yeah,
it's
for free. Yeah, so there you go. Boom. Yeah.
So the program itself is a different thing, but all the movements are out there.
Yeah, and if they sent you 100 messages and asked you for each one of them DMing you, you would probably at some point give them all that information, I would guess.
Yeah. You can DM me anything. I'll answer any question.
So yeah, well, cool, awesome, man. Well, this has been our longest recording.
Blew by.
You know what? If that's okay, if anybody deserves to have the longest recording that we've had so far, it's you. You know, I appreciate what you've done. You know, in my life, you've like I said, we've known each other for a long time. I've gotten to kind of sit alongside as you kind of made these different stops on your journey and go through all these different things, and it's been really cool to be to get to see all that. So glad we got to really go into the detail of your whole experience, because I think there's people out there that can. I think there's a lot of goalkeepers out there that can get some value out of hearing your story. So looking forward to sharing it and seeing, you know, what we can do with it. And then again, this program too, I think that's going to be super valuable. Because not too many have talked about, you know, strength training specific to goalkeeping. I think it's just sort of a big sort of question mark out there, even at the professional level.
Not really out there.
Yeah. So maybe you'll become a contracted goalkeeping fitness specialist, get flown all over the world to the top clubs, like that guy that's the throw-in coach.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so cool. Hey, we'll see. Just keep plugging away on Instagram, I guess.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mentioned Aviata. Did we find out how to pronounce that name yet?
I still don't know if it's Aviata or Aviata. Sorry, guys. I think it might be Aviata, but I've always said Aviata. So aviatasports.com. Those are our good friends, our partners who help to make help us with generating the quality content and supply us with gloves and balls and equipment, which we're going to be including in all of our videos coming up. I'm in a quarantine right now because I was exposed. So
that's right. I was just going to say, we're going to get out there with our new stuff, but
so it's been a little bit of time since we've had any content up, but new content, but that's coming. So bear with us. We need to put out a tutorial for phase 3 1v1s because that was our last podcast, but enough of that. Thank you guys here. I'm rolling away. If you're listening, my socials on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok are at Hunt Gilstrap. Will, what's yours? You're not on TikTok, but you have Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, Instagram it's at Will Marshall 1, Facebook Will Marshall, YouTube Will Marshall. That's it. I am on TikTok now, actually. I don't know what it is though, because I don't really use it that much. I was gonna start posting all the stuff that's on Instagram on TikTok, but it's a whole new world. So I'm gonna see what happens
It's
there.
not that complicated. We can talk about that outside of
Yeah,
this.
we might have to do that.
There's a lot of attention on TikTok right now. But
yeah, I'll figure it out.
like I said, we'll figure it out. Hey
Yeah.
guys, we appreciate your time. Thank you for spending some of your very valuable time with us. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast and learning all about Will and his really awesome journey.
Thanks if you made it this far.
And thanks if you made it this far. And again, we're happy. And thank you, Will, for sharing your story, and thanks for being part of GK4FREE.
Of course.
And we will see you guys soon.